Hello YouTube. So today I am going to be exploring a question that I had from some people that I know, some retailers, something I'd noticed myself, and just kind of a general thing about the knife industry. So something that multiple people have noticed in recent years is that Benchmade has been called out for kind of reducing their quality, reducing their materials and workmanship, but not reducing the price of their knives. So a question that brings up is, hey, well, there's a lot of Benchmade knockoffs out there. Is it worth trying a Benchmade knockoff? So I tried a bunch, and today we're going to go over them and look at them. So today we have a real Benchmade 535 Bugout, right? And we have 4 fake ones. And we also have a fake Benchmade FACT. So let's go over my experience with these and just kind of talk about where they're from, what we're looking at, all that sort of thing. So some of these claim to be S30V steel. Some of them admit that, hey, it's labeled S30V on the blade, but it's actually D2 or something else. It's probably not even D2. So all these came from China, obviously, except the real one. Some of them came from different sellers. So the titanium one, this G10 one, and the FACT all came from Naren Knives on eBay or Metal Empire Knives. The blue one came from Xiaolanhua EDC store or Mithwork. I'll put these down in the description. And the other natural G10 one came from xiaolanhua68 on eBay. It doesn't matter that much except for this one, and I'll explain why later. So when you're looking at the Bugout, obviously Benchmade knives are famous for their axis lock. They're famous for being very smooth. As you can see, this one, the fiberglass reinforced nylon one, is not very smooth. Like it never got the axis flip ability that you expect. And it already does even have some back and forth blade play. So this is obviously not a quality knife, right? The scales are very flexible on this. I mean, I can kind of work the knife sideways with my fingers. The real one is not as flexible. It's still somewhat flexible, which is one of the complaints that I have with the real Benchmade Bugout, aside from the fact that it's too expensive. But very flexible, you know. The G10 ones don't have that problem, right? Both of these ended up being very smooth after the initial break-in period. They all started out pretty rough, but these actually broke in very quickly. They're actually kind of nice to use. These ones, if I didn't know better, like this one, there's no way I would have said this is a Benchmade, right? These ones I would have had a hard time telling. You know, the quality control on these and the smoothness of them is good enough that it would be pretty tough to tell. There are some differences between these from different sellers. This one, the axis lock and the thumb studs stick out a bit further. And they do as compared with the real one too. I actually think this is better ergonomics even than the real one. It's a little bit easier to catch everything, a little bit easier to make sure what happens with the lock and stuff is what you wanted to happen with it. Where it gets really interesting is with this titanium scaled one. This one was quite a bit more expensive, but this is real titanium scales and real Damascus steel on this knife. It's some sort of a layered Damascus over a core. You can kind of see there. You can see it along the spine there too. This one is very smooth. You can't flip it, but the feel of it is just buttery smooth. And the fit and finish of this are every bit as good as a real Benchmade or better. So this is where it gets kind of interesting, where you know, I think this is prettier than any Benchmade I've ever seen. You know, and it costs about 60 bucks as opposed to several hundred for a titanium scale Benchmade. So this is where it gets really interesting. So ergonomics wise, you know, feel wise, that's kind of where we are with those. Where we really start to get into problems with all of these is the edge retention. So the real Bugout, you know, this did 200 cuts through my dowel before it started to get dull. None of these other ones, these 535s, made it past 20 cuts before they had like visible rolling and edge deflection and, I mean, weren't sharp at all anymore. These are so bad that I'm not even completely sure they're made of hardenable steel. I'm pretty sure this might even be mild steel that they're made of, and it just, I mean, it just gets destroyed when you use it. The notable exception to that is this FACT, okay? Not only does this work pretty smoothly, right? You know, it closes and stuff pretty smoothly, not Benchmade smoothly, but not far off. This actually went 175 cuts through a dowel, and it still had a decent edge. That's real knife territory. And this was, you know, 20 bucks. The real FACT is like 250 bucks. This one in particular, I would not pay the money for the real thing. I would rather have this. The Bugout, I mean, this is definitely a better knife. It's not my favorite knife. I don't necessarily recommend this knife, and I'll show that in another video that I have coming up. There's a knife I like better that's very similar, but, you know, quality for these is obviously very inconsistent. This was the same seller as these two. You know, same price, right? Performance is wildly different. So, you know, still inconsistent on the quality there, which is to be expected with a cheap knockoff. You know, this is not really a serious video. I'm not recommending any of these knives over the real thing. But there are some decent quality things out there. So far, no, the knockoffs are not worth putting a real, you know, getting instead of a real Benchmade. But that is where we are with that video. Kind of an interesting comparison. One thing I did really want to mention, a lot of people ask about these scales here. So these knives are cheap enough that sometimes people want to know, hey, can I just buy this and put the scales on the real one? Because I don't like these scales. A lot of people don't. Unfortunately, no. None of these scales will fit on the real knife. I tried them all. Even the titanium ones don't fit, so there's no, you know, no easy way to get around that, unfortunately. Interestingly enough, the titanium scale, the titanium knife here, this is cheaper than buying just a set of titanium scales, which a lot of those are also made in China. But unfortunately, they won't fit, so you can't just swap them out, and it's not an easy fix. Some of these you could actually probably do a little bit of drilling and have them fit okay if you wanted to try that, but the titanium ones will not fit. So hopefully that was entertaining. Again, not necessarily a real full review, but just kind of some fun with cheap knives. So hope you enjoyed, and keep adventuring.